Dear friends, recently some very interesting stories have come to light concerning the engines of the Skarloey Railway. Skarloey himself was sent to the works at Crovan's Gate recently, and so the other engines were left to do his work as well as their own while he was away. They missed him very much, and often thought of him. But one engine in particular was rather fascinated by the events that happened on the railway the last time Skarloey had left it for a long period of time. Peter, Sam, Sir Handel and Rusty shared with him and myself some very fascinating memories of his and Sir Handel's some very fascinating memories of their early days on the railway. I simply couldn't keep them to myself, so I decided to share them with you all. Not that Sir Handel would approve. Ah well, if Sir Handel finds out about it, I shall set the families of 3 young boys onto him. That will serve him right. And I expect you'll feel most sorry for Rusty. He has not had an easy time of it lately, you see. But I mustn't say any more, or I shall spoil the stories. The author. Skarloey Railway Memories. Written and read by TARDIS9. Based on the Railway series by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry and Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends by Britt Allcroft and David Mitten. Boys will be boys. Life on the Skarloey Railway had never been quite the same since the anniversary gala. Several further gala events had been held, each more successful than the last, featuring material from both the Thin Clergyman's books and the TV series, accompanied by executives from the TV company. They visited the line regularly, considering what to use for each event and where it should be placed. The engines were not sure what to make of these executives. Some were kind and showed great interest in the railways. Others weren't and made their views known. The worst of these was a man called Mr. Matt, one of their senior executives. He was a stubborn person with a foul temper and even worse attitude. He sniffed haughtily at the engines as they went past. "What a horrid-looking black box," he would sneer at Rusty. "Call yourself an engine? You don't even have a proper funnel," he would remark to Peter Sam. "Titchy little wheels like yours went out a long time ago," he would call out to Sir Handel. "What sort of an engine has no cab?" he would say to Fred. "An old engine like you belongs in the scrapyard," he would snap at Duke and Rheneas. "Get rid of that accent. Nobody likes it," he would hiss at Duncan. Neither the engine's staff nor even the Fin controller and the owner liked him, but as he played a key role to the gala events, they had no choice but to accept his presence. This year was especially busy, as the executives had once again come to the railway to oversee preparations for the event. Goods traffic too had increased significantly. Farms were sending more of their goods by rail to the towns and villages along the line, and the engines were kept hard at work dealing with the additional goods traffic on top of the usual passenger services. On top of the usual passenger services, Rusty's maintenance trains and even the weed killer tanker. In addition, Skarloey had been sent to the Tallinn Railway to be mended. The men at the works had done their best, but the repairs needed were time-consuming, and the workshops had become too busy. The engines missed their friend, but carried on regardless. They knew it would never do. They knew it would never do to let the railway that had been their home fall into hardship, no matter how many engines ran the line. "Do you know," said Peter Sam to Ivo Hugh in the sheds one morning, "I sometimes feel like it was yesterday when he was last here." "Indeed," agreed Ivo Hugh. "I wish he would return soon. We need all the help we can get, human or machine." "Pah!" came a voice. "At least we don't have people of all ages work on our line." Peter Sam and Ivo Hugh looked on as Sir Handel backed down crossly into the shed. "What do you mean by that?" Ivo Hugh asked crossly. "When I went to Wales," grumbled Sir Handel, "I was once held up by a young boy who volunteered as a guard. The stupid fool had forgotten his flags and left me in my train waiting while he went to get them. My train was late and I was blamed. No wonder Mr. Matt says that volunteers are a useless bunch of clots." "Well, he is wrong and you shouldn't listen to him. Anyway, you should be more patient with children and young people then, shouldn't you, Sir Handel?" said Peter Sam. "Or haven't you learned from your past?" Ivo Hugh looked at Peter Sam. "What happened?" he asked. "I'll tell you about it," Peter Sam replied. Sir Handel seethed. "You wouldn't," he grumbled. Peter Sam grinned and winked at Ivo Hugh. "I would." And he did. And this is the story he told. It happened many years ago when both Skarloey and Rheneas had been sent away for repairs. Back then, Sir Handel and Peter Sam were left to run the line. They found it difficult to get used to at first. There was no access to larger industrial areas such as ports, not as many steep gradients to climb, and fewer goods trains. Not that Sir Handel minded this much. And the incident involving Sir Handel's derailment and the refreshment lady didn't help much. But they soon came to enjoy their new home and liked to puff up and down the line with their little trains. "It's beautiful," Peter Sam said. "Not like the Mid-Sodor, though," Sir Handel replied, "but it serves." "It's better than rusting away in a scrapyard anyway," they agreed. The two engines worked hard, pulling goods and passengers to wherever they needed to go. People would often wave to them from the line side and take their photographs. They would also talk to them whenever they could. In fact, so many passengers came that the owner bought 3 open coaches, Ada, Jane and Mabel, a guards van, Cora, and 2 bogie coaches, Gertrude and Millicent, to accommodate the increased workload. Sometimes the passengers would even volunteer to come and work on the railway. This was particularly useful since the railway was suffering some significant financial problems. Peter Sam didn't mind this, but Sir Handel did and grumbled dreadfully about it all. "It's absurd," he grumbled one night. "Allowing rank amateurs to work on a railway? Completely ludicrous, I say." Peter Sam cocked an eyebrow. "Really?" he grinned. "And I suppose it has nothing to do with men playing trains, does it, Falcon?" Sir Handel spluttered, embarrassed at the memory and use of his old name. Well, I don't think I'd call you any better by letting Grandpa push you like that, Stuart," he retorted. "Oh, come on, Sir Handel," Peter Sam replied. "You should know full well by now that all railway workers have to begin somewhere." "Of course I do," said Sir Handel. "But what I don't understand is why they would want to give up their spare time to do it in. If you ask me, all these volunteers want to do is just cause confusion and delay." Peter Sam scoffed at this. "Says you," he snorted. But as he knew it would be an uphill struggle trying to convince Sir Handel otherwise, he decided to say nothing more on the matter and went to sleep instead. The next morning things were no better. Sir Handel was still grumbling. He had had to take the first goods train that day. As Peter Sam had been on the first passenger train of the day, he had moved Sir Handel on shed to be steamed up. "This is a fine state of affairs," he seethed. "First I'm sidelined onto the goods trains, and now this. serviced by infants." This last remark was directed towards two young boys who were busily cleaning him. Both were about 8 years old. One was tall with ginger hair, while the other was slightly shorter with blonde hair. The latter was not going to have any of it with Sir Handel. "Oh, do shut up, Sir Handel," he retorted. "You know full well this is better than closing. My pa said so." "And mine," agreed the ginger-haired boy to his friend. He then whispered something to the blonde-haired boy. They had noticed the door to Sir Handel's cab was locked. Another part of their duties was to load coal into Sir Handel's bunker. This was inside his cab, directly in front of the firebox. This proved advantageous, since it meant coal could be broken up and shoveled directly into the firebox in the middle of a train. But it did have one drawback. It required the door to be open while it was being loaded. Sir Handel's crew had allowed them to be open in order to release his brakes, so that Peter Sam could pull him outside. But had them promptly locked shut once this was done, his brakes applied and his fire lit. They had remembered what had happened to James and weren't going to take any chances. Because the cab door was locked, the boys couldn't get in to load the coal. They both knew full well that the wisest thing to do was to ask the crew to unlock the door for them. But Sir Handel was so cross and had said such spiteful things towards them that they had decided to pay him out. Balancing the coal sack on their shoulders, they climbed up his ladder, placed it on his cab door, and with one mighty shove, pushed it over. Coal scattered and fell all over Sir Handel's footplate, completely covering it in coal dust. Sir Handel was livid. "You young hooligans!" he seethed. "You clean that up right now!" His ranting and raving attracted the attention of his crew. Feeling slightly ashamed of themselves, the boys explained what had happened. The driver and fireman laughed and promised not to tell their parents if they cleaned up the mess they had made. The boys, relieved that the crew had a good sense of humour, set about their task with a grin on their faces. But Sir Handel grumbled all the rest of the day. As a result, he was rough with the coaches, gave his trucks a bump, and even sneered whenever he saw a child anywhere near him. He grumbled about it in the sheds that night. "Oh, those boys," he fumed. "Fancy making a mess in my cab like that. I don't know why we bother with them if all they do is cause us trouble." "Oh, shut up," retorted Peter Sam. "Those boys had been doing us a favour, and all you did was be ungrateful towards them. You were asking for trouble talking about them like that, my dear Engine, and you know it." "But they had no cause to do that," protested Sir Handel. "After all, I was only telling the truth. "Rubbish," snorted Peter Sam. "Now go to sleep like a sensible Engine and stop talking nonsense." But Sir Handel didn't, and began thinking of ways to pay the boys out. Every morning, the first passenger train departs Crovan's Gate at around 7 a.m. and returns at around 8:15 a.m. The return train is often full of either people going to work or young children going off to school. Peter Sam didn't mind taking this train and would often puff happily along the line, the coaches humming nicely behind him. But Sir Handel did, and today he was even more bad-tempered than ever. "Silly," he snorted. "To think that I, of all engines, should have to ferry such young vandals to school of all things." He started off from Crossy Curran at a jolt, and was running nicely when he heard a voice coming from behind him. "Wait! Please wait!" Sir Handel looked back. There was a young boy running behind him, looking rather familiar. His shape and hair colour resembled the same ginger-haired boy who had played that trick on him the day before, along with his friend. He then looked back at his crew. His guard had been too engaged in observing the timetables, and his driver and fireman were buried in their work. "Ha!" thought Sir Handel. "If I can't get back at both him and the blonde one, I can at least pay the ginger one out. I'll pay him out, he snorted crossly to himself. The poor boy desperately carried on running towards Beatrice, who saw him and tried calling out to the others, but Sir Handel was so determined and made so much noise that nobody heard her. Sir Handel carried grimly on, determined to outrun the boy. At last he did so, and the poor child soon disappeared into the distance. Sir Handel was cheerful all day. "Hurrah, I've won! Hurrah, I've won!" he puffed as he went about his work. But as he returned to the shed, he was surprised to see the owner there waiting for him. "You were quick on your wheels today, completing your work on time and in a cheerful mood," he said. Sir Handel beamed with pride. "And so I suppose you can explain why my nephew was so late to school despite his having tried to board your train?" Sir Handel's face took on a mask of dismay. "I shall have a word with your crew about this," continued the owner. "Timetables are indeed important, but if we have a railway to run, we have to prove ourselves reliable to people of all ages, even if they may have wronged us. I have seen and heard for myself what those boys did to you, and what you said to them. I shall talk to them about keeping things tidy, but as for you, I think that perhaps another week on goods workings will straighten you out. Perhaps then you'll come to understand and appreciate the value of our volunteers' work." "And Sir Handel did," finished Peter Sam. "Well, for about 6 days anyway." Ivo Hugh laughed. "I see nothing much has changed even now," he grinned. Sir Handel seethed with humiliation until a devious smile crossed his face. "Do you know, I seem to recall your first few days weren't entirely without incident either, and not just with the refreshment lady too." Peter Sam gasped. "You wouldn't," he hissed. "Oh, but I will," Sir Handel giggled. "You see, Ivo Hugh, But I mustn't tell you any more, or I shall spoil the next story."